Okay, this is going to be a bit of a quick video discussing an interesting question that many of you have been asking, and that's going to be toward the Daybreak Chronicle, which is a new signature weapon for our lovely Venti. Now technically you already have up to 2 signature weapons before, which is the Skyward Bow and the Elegy, both of which are actually pretty good up until this point. Though the Daybreak also has its own perk, which is why we're going to be looking into it and see whether or not it's going to be worth it if you are thinking about going for this weapon, and whether or not you can actually use it on some of the other characters, so that it's actually going to be worthwhile if you do decide to put your Primos gems down. Durin, as well as so many other amazing Not Cry character, is going to be coming soon, and I know that many of you are trying to get them. So if you're planning to swipe for pooling, then don't forget to check out Loot Bar. If you know me, I've been recommending you guys Loot Bar before, since you can always save almost a 25% on all of your top-ups. With over 100,000 orders and so many good reviews at this point. And by the way, this also applies to PS5 and Xbox user who can place orders through Loot Bar. You can be sure that Loot Bar is trustworthy. Here you can see my order receipts of all of my top-ups that I have done. And for those who are going for the highest package when topping up, there's also a limited discount options available once every version. So guys, be sure to check out Loot Bar through the link in my description, as it can be a great way for you to save your money, especially if you are topping up a large amount. Alright, so first off, what does this bow actually do? Now we do have a decent base attack and crit damage of 44%. Not too high compared to some of the other options where it can go up to an 88% crit damage. But for the passive, this is one of, if not the most confusing, unnecessarily long description that it needs to be. I think Codeverse just kind of ran out of ideas in terms of passive for the Daybreak, which is why it was kind of like this. So at the start, where it says 3 seconds after leaving combat, your normal skills and burst is increased by 60% damage wise. Many of us actually first thought that it's whenever the character goes off field, but I am most certain that this part means that when you are out of battle, like the whole battle, after 3 seconds you're going to be having that 60% damage. And then while in combat, which is when you enter battle, the damage bonus will decrease by 10% per second until it reaches 0. However, when the equipped character use their normal skills and elemental burst to hit the opponent, this damage will be increased by 10% until it reaches 60%, and this can stack up once every 0.1 seconds for each of the attack type that is mentioned above. So yes, overall you will have the ability to have your normal attack, skills, and elemental burst damage being increased up to 60%, but each of these skills will technically have to have consistent damaging in order for you to make use of this damage. And for the final part of the passive, if the Hexarray passive is available, then technically it's kind of like double, so faster, like twice faster for you to charge up to the maximum level, which means, for the sake of simplicity, this passive just means that your character is going to be able to have their normal attack, skills, and elemental burst damage potential increased by a 60%. Now which kind of damage will definitely depend on your character. So for example, for Venti, this is definitely going to be a DPS bow for him, which means that if he's holding this and being on a field doing his normal attack, then his normal attack will definitely get the 60% damage increase, and also his elemental burst will most likely get that as well, because it does damage over time. So Venti is going to be able to make use of 2 of these. But if you're using this on some other character, maybe they're only going to be able to make use of the E skill damage increase, or maybe they're only going to be able to make use of the elemental burst damage increase, which is okay of a bow, I would say. Not too meta defining or unique of a bow. It's just that, you know, sometimes it's just going to be harder for you to keep up the stack, which is going to be the downside of this, obviously. Now for Venti himself, this is going to be a DPS weapon for him. I'd say, yeah, it's good. He will be able to make use of this pretty decently. However, as I've mentioned in the past, he does have some other signature. First off is going to be the Skyward Harp. Now this bow bow honestly is by no means bad. It is one of the best bow in the earlier days of Genshin Impact, especially in the 1.0 version, because of the fact that you do have both crit rate and crit damage being provided by this bow. Now obviously it does fall off, but the biggest thing is that you have the potential to get this from the standard weapon banner. So honestly speaking, I think this bow is still holding up very well if you are using it for a DPS Venti. But other options we do have, for example, the Polar Star, the Aqua Simulacra, the Thundering Pulse. All of these options are also still very good DPS option wise, especially if you are using for Venti, and Venti will still be able to make a full use of basically all of the passive from these weapons as well, though the requirement for you to trigger all of these bows passive does differ. But hey, at the end of the day, if you do already have these weapons, I'm pretty sure it's still going to hold up your Venti DPS power really well, in which even though the Daybreak is probably going to be roughly around 15 to 20% better than these options. However, unless you are really lucky, you are actually saving yourself a couple thousands Primo gems to not having to pull on the weapon banner and trying to get this new weapon itself. Now, in terms of the universal of this weapon, whenever you are trying to use it on other couple of characters, I think this bow will most likely be able to use on characters such as Official, Yoimiya, Sethos, Yelan, and Child. Though again, all the other DPS options that we mentioned above, many of these characters will also be able to make use of it. Official, she will be most likely able to get the elemental skill damage bonus, though I think from her normal rate of attack, unless she is at a C6 level, I think pre-C6 is probably going to be a little bit hard for her to keep up the stat consistently, because Oz firing rate pre-C6 is actually kind of slow. Yoimiya, Sethos, Child, all of the character that can focus on doing a normal attack, I think is also a fine option for us to be using onto them. And then Yelan, not really sure if this is going to be able to get her elemental burst damage increased that way. If it is considered, I think most likely it will, then it's also going to be a decent weapon for Yelan. So what I think about this weapon, honestly guys, is this is more going to be a weapon for those accounts that don't really have some of the other bow DPS options I've already mentioned. Because if you guys do, then I don't think this bow is going to be that huge of a difference, and the other DPS bow are still going to be working really well for you. But hey, if you are loving the Daybreak weapon aesthetic, which is really good, then I really do wish you good luck whenever you pull on the weapon banner. So guys, that's all I have to say regarding the weapon itself. I hope that the video have been helpful to you. If you do have any questions, leave it down in the comment section and I or some other lovely Genshin player will get to you there. If you're still on the fence of which to invest into, Luna 3rd, then honestly I have some of the videos that will be able to help you out, so be sure to check that out. With that guys, I wish you a super day and I'll catch you on my next video.